Hello, my name is Richard Thorkson, and I am a long-term COVID-19 survivor. I was in the hospital last year in November 5th, spent 2 months in the hospital, and a year later, here I am in November of 2021, still recovering. It's not something I would recommend to anyone, definitely. And I was quite surprised that it caught me because I was being as careful as anyone else. But what happened was I went to work on a Friday and thought I had a small temperature. Told the boss, and he said, well, because I thought it was just the flu, and he went, nope, we're not taking any chances, you go get tested. So I spent 2 hours in the car in a lineup to get tested. And Tuesday of the next week, my test came back as positive. And Tuesday night or Wednesday night, I forget what it was, my wife noticed at about 2 in the morning that I was having a very hard time breathing. So she called for the ambulance, and they came and took me, and I went into the hospital. It's kind of interesting because I got up to get out of the bed, and I couldn't even get into the stretcher. I just stood up and went down, and thankfully the guys were aware of what was going on, and they caught me before I fell down and hurt myself. And I remember the trip down the stairs because I was curious as to how that was going to work, and that was it. That's all I remember. Apparently the next day, or later that day, I was awake and I had this big mask on my face for oxygen. And I sent out to Facebook and I said, well, first promise is, God is my oxygen, so I'm not worried about that. Don't remember anything about that day at all. And then later that day or that evening took a turn for the worse, and they had to intubate me. So essentially I was unconscious in a medically induced coma for 3 weeks while machines breathed for me. My kidneys were shutting down, my other organs were shutting down, my right lung collapsed. They had to put a tube in my side so that I could breathe, and died twice. So I like to tell people, devil sent me back apparently with a restraining order. Apparently I was too much trouble there too. But so 3 weeks later I woke up and I couldn't move. I had no strength whatsoever. I couldn't even roll over in the bed by myself. The nurses had to hold me, and they thought it was great when a few days later I could finally hold myself when they rolled me on the side so they could change the sheets and such. My first goal was strictly just to be able to stand up. It's amazing how your goals change based on your situation. So, did that, and then finally I was able to walk, and I could walk to the end of the room when in December when I was recovering in the hospital, and it took me a week to be able to walk down the hall and around the floor, and almost 2 weeks before I felt I was more or less able to walk without a walker. So long recovery, and then December 30th they sent me home finally. So I missed Christmas, but I was there for New Year's. But I also, during that time, I developed a very bad bed sore. When you say bed sore, I initially thought, sort of like you skinned your knee and there's a little bit of skin missing and things like that, but that's not it. I had a hole that was a crater, and it was filled with something they called fluff, which was all dead skin. And they didn't know how deep it was, but it was very large. And then in the middle of January, I developed a very bad infection with that, went into the hospital, they cleaned it out, which was the weirdest experience, to have somebody digging around inside your body like that. And then we could actually see how deep it was, and they were very concerned that it was that had gone as deep as the bone, and because the bones were almost exposed. That's how deep it was. It was huge. So I went on 6 weeks of antibiotics, injections, intravenous, so I had a PICC line put in again for that. And my lovely wife learned how to do that at home, so we wouldn't have to go to the hospital twice a day to do that. So that, as I said, lasted for 6 weeks, and it took all the way up until the end of June before the bed sore actually healed up enough and closed over so that I didn't need a bandage on it anymore to be changed every day or every 2 days. So that was a long healing time, and I'm still healing from that. I can still only sit for basically about 1 or 2 hours, and then it gets awkward, shall we say, and uncomfortable, and I have to move. But the long-term COVID effects is there. I mean, firstly and foremost is the lungs. I have diminished lung capacity, so I run out of breath very easily. It used to be that even when I bent over, I would run out of breath and almost faint. Thankfully, I can bend over now without as much trouble with that. But I still run out of breath. I used to be a great walker, but now I can only do maybe 15 to 20 minutes at the most. If I try to push it and do half an hour walk, then it takes me 2 or 3 days to recover from that. So that's not a good thing at all. So I have to keep my walks down to about 15 or 20 minutes at the most, generally once a day. And then, of course, there's the brain fog and the brain fatigue. If I was helping work out remotely, for example, last week, and I had 2 tasks to do, both of which should have taken me about 15 minutes each, but they both took about an hour and a half, so I was online about almost 3 hours total, and at the end of that I had to just quit and stop and go lie down because I was mentally and emotionally exhausted from that. It was crazy. So because of that, I'm still on long-term disability and unable to work, because who could hire a part-timer that's only good for 2 hours a day? It doesn't work on the computer industry. So that's one of the reasons I'm trying to raise money. The main reason, actually, because I thought I was doing a good thing and moved from Winnipeg, Manitoba to St. John, but I'm having a very hard time getting a doctor. There's thousands of people ahead of me, and if I don't get a doctor, that means I can't get my reports done, and if I can't get my reports done, that means there's no long-term disability insurance. So that is a major concern, and as I said, I'm trying to raise money so that I can work on some software projects. I've been working on software since 1980 as a programmer and system administrator, database admin, and all that stuff. So that's the plan, is anyway to become completely self-sufficient now that I can work a few hours a day and try to get that done. But again, it is up to you. And it's very hard for me to sit here and say that I need help, but I need help. And how you can help is very simple. I have 2 fundraisers going. One is on GoFundMe, where you can do a lump sum, and the other, to help me get my home computer updated and some software so I can get the tools needed to create the software that I need to do. And the second one is on a something called Patreon, which where you can support me on a month-to-month basis, and that way I'm hoping if I can get a large number of people doing $10 or $20 a month, then that will support me until the software is written and it's being sold, and I have an income coming in. So thank you in advance very much for your listening to this and your support, and I'll keep posting some updates. Again, thanks, and God bless, and I very much appreciate any support you can send my way, even including sharing this and getting the word out, because only by getting the word out will things work. God bless. Bye.